Hello and welcome, my name is Anwin and today I've got a bit of a rant video for you. I've decided to break from my original plan a little to fit this video in after a blog post I wrote on MMORPG.com named The Toxicity of Questing in MMORPGs Today ended up with over 500 views in 4 days. I'll add the link in the video description below if you'd like to read it, but I'll cover the subject in this video as well. Regardless of whether some people agreed with me or not, I think that the title at the very least must have struck a chord with the readers, so I wanted to use this opportunity by ranting a little bit more about the mechanics in MMORPGs that I believe to be problematic, in that they lessen the overall enjoyment of the game. Which leads us to the new blog post I wrote today on MMORPG.com titled The Absurdity of 100 Spellbars. As you're watching me play Final Fantasy XIV, you can clearly see my ridiculous setup of 6 different hotbars. Just a quick note here, there are no main storyline spoilers in this video. I'm only leveling my character by completing side quests so that I can unlock the next quest in the main storyline. Back to the subject of spellbars, I'll briefly describe my overall setup so you can get a better idea of where I'm going with this. The spellbar number 1 contains my offensive spells bound to the keys 1 to 12, or rather the equal sign on my keyboard. The second spellbar contains my healing abilities and some utility spells. This bar is bound to the shift key and a number from 1 to 12. I also have a similar macro set on all of the buttons on my mouse, a Razer Naga, which is far more convenient to use than the F1 to F12 keys. The third spellbar contains more utility spells, and some new skills I've received but don't have enough room on the right spellbar to use, or at least not without having to do some kind of crazy gymnastic with my fingers to reach the right keys. The third spellbar is bound to the keys Alt plus Shift and a number from 1 to 12. I only need to press the Alt button and a mouse button instead for convenience. The fourth spellbar is my pet bar. I sometimes manually click the last 4 spells in the dungeons for more healing efficiency, as opposed to letting the pet automatically use its abilities at the wrong time. The last 2 spell bars, standing vertically on the right, contains my mount abilities, bound to some keyboard keys since, as you can see from the video, I use them a lot, and the other abilities are skills that I might use maybe once per dungeon, so manually clicking them is more than enough. As I'm fighting monsters in the video, you'll notice very quickly that I'm always using the same 5 or 6 different abilities. In dungeons I'll largely use the same 5 or 6 different healing abilities instead. What this means is that I've got all these spells on my spell bars that I never really use except once in a while, usually in dungeons, but most of the time I can easily do without them. Some people will say that having so many abilities adds complexity to the game. But complexity is not created by throwing a bunch of abilities at you to clutter your spellbar. Complexity is created through challenging game content that requires players to work together, like a scripted boss encounter with various dangerous gimmicks. And it's not a problem specific to Final Fantasy XIV. You'll have the same problem in World of Warcraft, Rift, and other MMORPGs. Luckily, there are some MMOs out there that have attempted to bring a solution to the table, like Guild Wars 2 or The Elder Scrolls Online, where you are given access to a wide variety of skills and abilities, but can only use a maximum number at the same time, which means that you'll tend to focus more on using abilities that works for you, or that you enjoy using more because you are given so many choices in the game. Now, I'm not saying that MMOs should not all follow the Guild Wars 2 model. But what I'm saying is that despite limiting the amount of abilities a player can use at once, it has not made these games any less complex on that front. And the added benefit of being able to customize your own character build according to your own playstyle makes the overall experience so much more enjoyable. I'll add a link to my blog post on the subject of skills and hotbars in the video description for those who'd like to read a bit more about this, as I didn't go into every details in the video. For the rest of the video, I wanted to go back a little to my first blog post on questing. As you're watching me complete the various quests, you'll notice that they repeat a lot. It is incredibly mind-numbing to have to complete so many quests in order to gain a single level, but the worst part is doing the quests that are practically the same as the quests you just completed a minute earlier. And yet, this is something we've accepted for over a decade now as something that is normal in MMORPGs. That the same 4 or 5 quest template will be repeated over and over again until you finally reach the end of the game. That is, of course, until the next expansion that will add even more of the same. That is not to say that we should do away with questing completely, but that we should use questing more sparingly. A quest is an adventure, a chance to learn more about the world you play in, to unravel mysteries, to discover unknown lands or runes, to face off against dangerous foes, to be part of a story far bigger than yourself, but where you play a very important role. Of course, it makes some sense for a nameless adventurer to complete some basic chores as he begins to make a name for himself. But a full-fledged adventurer, a hero having to help a farmer shear his sheep for a pair of boots is just ridiculous. So much time is spent by writers to create thousands of quests, and yet no one bothers to read them because at the end of the day, they're all the same quests over and over again, and all the player cares about is the loot and XP attached to them. And that's a shame because some of these side quests are actually quite well written and very interesting, but they get lost in a sea of boring, mindless chores with flavor text tacked onto them. So I say to you developers and writers, stop wasting your time creating mindless tasks and start working instead to create a very intricate world for players to live in. You, the writers, have the skills to write a complex and beautifully woven story that will make the players care about it, while you, the developers, have the skills to turn that story into an interactive world that players simply cannot get enough of. Your time is better spent nurturing players' imagination and creating a world that can bring that imagination to life. Now, before some of you guys start commenting that Final Fantasy XIV already does have a great story, you're right. Final Fantasy XIV has an amazing main storyline. It has hilarious side quests like the Hildebrand story quest. It also has quests that unlocks challenging content like extreme versions of many trials in the games. But it also has boring, mind-numbing quests. It also has that NPC telling you that he forgot his tools in a dangerous den of monsters. In fact, Final Fantasy XIV, like many other MMOs, has quite a lot of those NPCs. I wish we could just force them to double the quest reward or skip the quest completely because let's be honest, those NPCs brought this on themselves. Thanks for listening, hope you enjoyed the rant. The links to both my blog posts are in the description box below. I may possibly do more videos like these in the future to accompany some of my blog posts, so please subscribe and leave a comment. For now, I'll be going back to my regular schedule with Overwatch videos as I try to learn to play the different heroes the game has to offer. I am already thinking about what game to play next. I'll keep you guys updated once I've decided. See you soon!